Jurors also heard more from a former personal assistant, David James, who worked for Combs. James said that he feared for his life when Combs ordered him to drive an SUV with Combs in the back seat to a diner where rival Suge Knight was spotted.
David James testified under oath before a jury that Diddy...
Did you know that Barack Obama was in Diddy's mouth?
What happens when a global hip-hop icon, one who built an empire on beats, bling, and bravado, finds himself trapped under towering accusations of violence, coercion, and secrets that could unravel everything? That's exactly what's unfolding in federal court this spring as Sean Diddy Combs faces racketeering and sex trafficking charges that could send him to prison for decades. Today, we peel back the velvet rope facade to reveal a world of late-night weapon standoffs, whispered threats, and sworn testimony from the man who once knew Diddy closer than anyone, his personal assistant, David James. At the height of the 2000s, Sean Combs wasn't just a name, he was a brand. Bad Boy Records churned out platinum hits, fashion lines flew off shelves, and Combs cultivated an image of effortless swagger, always delivering that signature line, "Can't stop, won't stop." His transition from producer to cultural tastemaker seemed unstoppable until a federal indictment slammed that image into reverse. In September 2024, authorities charged him with leading a criminal enterprise that trafficked women, silenced insiders, and wielded violence behind the scenes. Overnight, news outlets everywhere splashed headlines about racketeering conspiracies and forced prostitution counts. Denied bail multiple times, Combs watched as decades of fame and influence were questioned in a matter-of-fact courtroom in Manhattan. By May 5th, 2025, the trial had begun, and opening statements painted a stark portrait. Prosecutors described a man who allegedly used non-disclosure agreements like shackles, threats of leaked footage as weapons, and a private arsenal to enforce loyalty. Defense attorneys countered, insisting these were consensual arrangements fueled by mutual benefit, and that former associates, embittered by broken contracts, were twisting stories for payoff. That clash set the tone for witness after witness, each ready to tip the scales. And on May 19th, one of the most crucial came forward. David James, a figure who once shared Combs' late-night world and now risked everything to speak the truth. But Combs' story isn't confined to opening statements. It lives in the day-to-day details that David James is only now revealing. David James' path to Combs' inner circle was anything but glamorous. He started out pounding the pavement as a door-to-door salesman, mastering the art of persuasion and attention to detail, skills that would become his calling card. After college in Michigan, James saw an ad promising work with Bad Boy, faxed his resume, and landed an interview at 1710 Broadway. Facing Tommy, Kesha, and other insiders, he aced a test scheduling 40 radio appearances in a single day, knowing exactly when Hot 97 went live and how to slot in Biggie tributes. That precision won him the job, and soon he found himself thrust into a world of red-eye flights, celebrity entourages, and a grueling schedule that blurred sunrise into sunset. From organizing dinners with A-listers to standing outside studio doors at 3 a.m., James logged 20-hour days without complaint, until he noticed the darker side of service. Security guards barked orders to stay in your lane, and every phone call could summon him to cover a secret rendezvous or mediate a feud. The perks were undeniable: access to star-studded events and whispered introductions to industry titans. But the cost was personal autonomy. As James rose in responsibility, he also accrued secrets, some benign, like Chef Jordan's bespoke menus, others far more troubling, involving controlling behavior and veiled threats. When prosecutors subpoenaed him, James faced a choice: preserve his silence or expose the inner workings of a legendary empire. Next up, the unbelievable demands that transformed a luxury suite into a personal command center. Picture a single trip to a 5-star hotel that feels more like a military operation than a vacation. James testified that Combs insisted on a precise inventory of 40 essential items before checking into any suite. Everything from specialized ointments labeled "for men only" to prescription-strength pills shaped like Barack Obama's face. His assistants tracked ketchup preferences, no generic brands, applesauce to pair with cheeseburgers, and even the exact make and model of his favorite iPod. One night in Los Angeles, James drove across town to fetch a hot meal from Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, nicknamed Roscoe's, arriving at 2 a.m. with the tray still warm. By the time most people were asleep, James was refilling Fiji water bottles, swapping out towels, and double-checking that the Louis Vuitton toiletry bag brimmed with everything from condoms to moisturizer that claimed to restore a youthful glow. But the logistics only tell half the story. Each errand felt like a loyalty test. A forgotten item could trigger a text at dawn demanding, "Bring it now!" Guests who stumbled upon these clandestine deliveries, hotel staff, visiting artists, even family members, were often hushed into conspiratorial silence. On one occasion, after a day of prepping for a late-night studio session, James was jolted awake by a message. Need an extra stash of Percocet and Ecstasy, Obama edition, and bring extra condoms. In the glow of the suite's bedside lamp, he realized he wasn't just handling requests, he was managing a shadow economy of vices that fueled both creativity and control. And with every trip, the boundary between assistant and enabler blurred further. Up next, the chilling account of how Combs allegedly treated Cassie Ventura as his moldable asset. Among the dozens of demands, one thread ran darker than the rest. Cassie Ventura, the sultry singer first discovered at Bad Boy auditions. James described Combs boasting in private, "Kim is my queen in LA, but Cassie, she's young and moldable." He claimed Cassie's recording sessions were controlled to the minute, her album delayed on Combs's whims, her songwriting credits buried in legal fine print. According to James, if Cassie ever threatened to go public, she'd face a $20,000 penalty. Or worse, a leaked sex tape that would haunt her career. He never saw violence, but he recalled Cassie arriving at a London hotel meeting visibly shaken, her browser history scrutinized, and her phone confiscated until she complied with financial demands. Cassie's mother later corroborated James's claims, recounting phone calls where Cassie confessed to feeling trapped, afraid to speak up because Combs financed her apartment and controlled her income. And while the defense argues these were standard industry tactics, mentorship blurred with management, prosecutors point to James's testimony as concrete evidence of psychological coercion. In one whispered exchange, James overheard Combs say, "I built her brand. I own her brand." Hearing those words, James realized that behind the velvet ropes and flashing cameras lay a system designed to silence through dependency and fear. As Cassie prepares to testify, the world braces for her version of events, a tale of power, promises, and potential exploitation. Coming up, a midnight showdown at Mel's Diner that reads like Hollywood fiction. If you think rap beef stays on wax, think again. James recounted a night in Miami that felt ripped from an action thriller. Combs climbed into a sleek black SUV, 3 handguns tucked into the glove compartment, and instructed James to drive to Mel's Diner. There, seated under neon lights, was Suge Knight, an infamous rival with a reputation matching Diddy's. James spotted 4 black SUVs strategically positioned around the lot. No sirens, no police, just a silent warning. Through the tinted window, he watched Knight slide a handgun into his waistband. Combs's eyes went cold. "Drive around the block," he ordered, voice low and measured. James's heart pounded as he circled the block, the city's late-night traffic a blur of headlights. When they returned, Combs sat with guns resting on his lap, fingers tapping impatiently. James gripped the wheel, sweat beading on his forehead, as they peeled away into the Miami night. No shots were fired, but the message was clear. Combs controlled the narrative, the territory, and anyone who challenged him risked grave consequences. Back at the safe house, the guns were stashed, and the world whispered nothing. For James, that night shattered any illusion that he was merely an assistant. He was a witness to potential violence, an unknowing accomplice in a power play. But the drama didn't end there. David James's revelations didn't stand alone. Across the courthouse, other former associates painted a complimentary portrait of excess and intimidation. Kid Cudi described stumbling onto a break-in at a late-night studio session. Glass shattered, heart racing, as security guards hushed him into the control room. Dawn. Richard spoke of freak-off parties where threats were whispered over blaring speakers, and guests left terrified rather than exhilarated. Front desk managers from luxury hotels testified about suites wrecked by candle wax, broken furniture, and invoices totaling tens of thousands of dollars. Charges that Combs allegedly refused to settle until pressured by corporate HQ. Even the pills shaped like Obama's face took on symbolic weight. Prosecutors argued they weren't a quirky party favor, but tools of manipulation. drugs handed out to ensure compliance, memories hazy enough that victims couldn't clearly recount events. Defense attorneys countered that these were consensual indulgences among adult entertainers, not evidence of a criminal enterprise. Yet, when you stitch together these first-hand accounts, from studio break-ins to pastry-lined hotel rooms, a pattern emerges. A sphere of influence enforced through fear, privilege, and the looming presence of wealth. Each vignette acts like a puzzle piece slotting into a larger, more troubling image. Next, the courtroom clash between prosecutors and defense, where every objection matters. Inside the hushed courtroom, every word carries weight. Prosecutors wielded James's testimony like a scalpel, probing for inconsistencies and drawing lines between oddball requests and allegations of coercion. They argued that non-disclosure agreements weren't standard contracts, but ironclad silencing tools, and that secret recordings of private moments were threats dangling over victims' heads. He didn't just want loyalty, he demanded it, they told the jury, gesturing to stacks of receipts for midnight deliveries and hotel logs showing Combs's constant surveillance of his inner circle. On the flip side, the defense painted a different picture. A generous mentor whose high-energy lifestyle naturally involved eccentric logistics. These aren't criminal directives. They're the fringe benefits of working with a global superstar, they insisted, spotlighting Combs's charitable foundation and the countless artists he propelled to fame. They portrayed James as an embittered former employee, eager to trade sensational stories for reduced charges, or simply desperate for relevance. Each objection, each sustained ruling, underscored the trial's razor-thin balance. And as witness after witness stepped down, the jury faced a monumental question. Was this the portrait of a man above the law, or a myth inflated by disgruntled insiders? Soon, it will be their verdict that decides whether Diddy's empire crumbles or endures. So, where does this leave us? A music industry titan celebrated for layering bass lines now faces unrelenting scrutiny over his darkest impulses. He could walk free or spend years behind bars. As David James's revelations echo through the East River courthouse, we're left to wonder, will power and fame shield him, or will the truth, once unleashed, crush even the biggest spotlight? If this story grips you, share your thoughts below. Do you believe these allegations or see them as courtroom drama? And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for every explosive update from the Diddy trial. The verdict isn't just about one man's fate, it's a reckoning for any star who thinks they're above the law.